Good afternoon, folks. You're very welcome to Croke Park. Thanks for being here. I see a few faces that I know, a few people I was talking to earlier on today as well. So today we're going to open Pandora's box. Does anybody know what that means? Anybody know the story of Pandora? We'll get there. But first, I want you to think, there's Pandora. Have a look at that image. What does it mean to you? Feel the warmth and the heat from it. Think about the number of careers that are based on the whole idea of fire. I mean, we're actually managing to harness the fire from the sun now and provide solar energy. Everything, the devices you have in your hands, they all came about because man learned how to harness fire, how to smelt metal, make tools, use them tools to make even better tools, use them better tools to make even better tools, and thousands of years later we end up with smartphones. That's what a world without fire would look like. How would we be? How would we function? Imagine if Zeus, that you just saw there, came and took fire back from us. That's what we're going to talk about. And the morals within the story of Pandora, we can use and apply that to change in our own lives. Because the story of Pandora, it's a very human story, and it's a story of adventure, it's a story of challenge, and it's a story of humanity. So long, long ago, after the Titans and the gods of Olympus had their war, Prometheus found fire and he gave it to the humans, to the men on Earth. Zeus could see that humans were progressing, they were getting a bit close to the gods' level. Zeus didn't really like that. He didn't want humans to be like the gods. He took fire back. But Prometheus had an affinity with humans. He went with a fennel stalk and he stole fire back from Hephaestus. Hephaestus was the blacksmith, the god of blacksmiths. He stole the spark from Hephaestus, brought it back down to earth. He knew he was going to be punished, and that did happen. But he knew that Zeus would exact revenge on humankind for his sin. So he warned his brother, Epimetheus, do not accept any gift from Zeus. That's Prometheus bringing fire back to mankind. Does that image look like something familiar to yourselves? The gods of Olympus? That's the origin of the story of where the Olympic flame came from, and that's the importance of fire in our lives, that how we've come along because of the advent of fire. So the revenge, what did he plan? He planned the most beautiful gift for men. Woman, a human woman. So he instructed Hephaestus to make this woman, and the gift was that he gave her form, but he also gave her the opposite. He made her form from earth. Earth returns back to earth, so he made her mortal. She was going to die and return back into the earth. From Athena gave her the gift of wisdom, kindness, and anger. So for every gift, he gave her the opposite. Aphrodite gave her beauty, desire, and a longing to weary the bones. So she gave her all the graces, but also the potential for depression. Hermes gave her speech. Again, an important advancement in humankind was language and speech, but he also gave her crafting and cunning words. Zeus then gave her an idle nature and a burning curiosity. Now, we're going to talk about curiosity later on when it comes to actually making plans for your own change. And he sent her down to earth. And she met many men. Men were afraid of her. They ran away from her because of her curious nature. She was always asking questions. Does that sound familiar, lads? The women in your lives asking questions. Then she came across Epimetheus. Epimetheus was besotted with her because he welcomed the curiosity, he welcomed the challenge, he welcomed the companionship and the conversation. So off they went on their courtship. Just before they were about to get married, Zeus gave her a box, warned her not to open the box. So she looked after the box. The night before their wedding, the burning curiosity in her got so hot that she said, okay, let's just have a little look inside, and we'd close the lid again. She popped open the lid. Out flew all the evils of the world. Disease, jealousy, greed, anger, war. She didn't know what she'd done. She knew exactly what she'd done. And the fear gripped her. She closed the lid back down in the box, but everything had escaped. But there was one little voice calling out, and it was welcoming, soothing. She opened the box, and out flew hope. Not many people know that story, that hope came out as well. So she had released hope into the world. So that's one thing that we need as humans. If we're planning change, to make those changes in our lives, is hope. Now, it turns out hope isn't an emotion. Hope is a way of thinking, which means that hope is teachable, that we can learn hope. And there have been 2,000 scientific studies on hope, how it affects kids in third world countries, how it affects kids in disadvantaged areas in our own city in Dublin. And the definition of hope is the idea that tomorrow can be better than today, and that we have the power to make it so. So just ask yourself this question: would a life without adversity be better than a life without hope? I think I would pick the challenges of life as long as there's hope. Change comes with its challenges. But we'll just delve more into hope. There we go. The future will be better than today, and you have the power to make it so. I'm re-emphasizing that point. So hope is boiled down into, it's very, very simple. It's about goals, it's about pathways, and willpower. Now we'll hone in on the willpower a little bit, because that's the challenging part of it. So when we set goals for ourselves, we often forget that life can throw us a few curveballs as well, because, people get sick in our lives, we might get sick ourselves. Anything can happen on your pathway. But the whole idea is that you can create a pathway. So maybe you have the pathway there, but you might not have the circumstances in your life to keep your willpower strong enough, because willpower is about motivation as well. So way power, so that's your pathways. Willpower then is about motivation, but it can also be about the absence of motivation, and it can be the circumstances in adversity. So one of the important things about willpower is it isn't a bottomless pit. It's very finite. So there is an importance to sleep, nutrition, and reducing the adversity in your life. So, when we're making change, the most important thing is the goal we set is for ourselves, not the goal we want for somebody else. It's our own goal, because we're all starting from a different platform, and we need to realize the person sitting next to you has a different set of challenges. You might be going for the same goal, but you've got completely different sets of challenges. I'm seeing a few couples in the audience as well, and anybody that's in a couple will know those challenges exist. Now, hope. Imagination is the instrument of hope. The goals, they must be desirable. So later on we're going to talk about the difference between desirable and undesirable goals. Both are important, by the way, but your goal itself must be desirable. Hope begets hope. Now, the most important thing to consider in hope is our social connections. There's a lot to be said for kindness in the world. Being kind to yourself is probably one of the most important things, because we can't pour from an empty cup. But when we are setting our change ideas and our goals, we really do need to be selective in the company that we keep and our social connections and the people that can help us manage those changes and achieve those changes that we want in our lives. So be intentional. Now, the goals themselves, when you are setting a goal, it must be action orientated. When I say action orientated, so as humans, again, that curiosity, it gives us a longing for something really, really big. Now, that big change that we want, that could be very far out. And as humans, we're not really good at making goals that far out in life. We're really only good at making short-term goals. The far out thing I prefer to call a vision and a mission statement. The goals should be action-orientated. So if I want to get fit, that's a vision. Because what's the definition of getting fitter? Well, the goal to get fitter is I'm going to run 3 miles 3 days a week, or I'm going to swim every morning of the week. They're the goals. They're measurable, they're specific, they're very action orientated. And you count how many days or how many months you need to do that to achieve a level of fitness that you feel is desirable for you. And again, remember that point, that it must be for you. Goals help you measure progress. Now, measuring progress, I'm going to get on to this topic, going back to Pandora's curiosity. Always be curious. Specifically, I'm talking about lifelong learning. So if you want to make the change in your life, first of all, you need to know, what exactly do I want? What skills do I need to get that goal that I want? And to get those skills, where am I going to look to learn those skills? Now, the fantastic thing about living in Ireland and current government policy is on the raising of all people, there's education there for everybody. There's free education. Some of us maybe that aren't from outside the EU, we have to pay. But we certainly don't have to pay as much as they have to pay in the US. So there's courses there, there's free courses, there's funded courses. I mean, I did a postgrad last year. I did it through Springboard. I think Springboard are here today. I paid €600 for a $6,000 course. I mean, you can't go wrong there. There's tons of courses out there. The other important thing about lifelong learning, purely from a biological point of view, I'm going to talk about the Notre Dame nun study. It was an order of nuns. They donated themselves to science, dead and alive. How are you? So the various tests done on them while they were alive. I will talk specifically about Sister Bernadette. She got educated at a young age. She was a teacher, but she was also a student all her life. She was always doing some sort of a course. In her 80s, she was able to tell the time of day to within 2 or 3 minutes accuracy without looking at a clock. That's how sharp her mind was. Now, here's the wonderful thing. After she died, when they did the autopsy and they looked at her brain, she had severe lesions of Alzheimer's. But while she was alive, she hadn't shown any of the symptoms. Now, what was happening there, as she was learning, she might have been learning some of the same things she already knew, but she might have been learning them in a different way. So as one set of neurons was separating from the Alzheimer's, she was overwriting that with a new pathway, with a new neuron. Isn't that absolutely amazing? So that's that's the other importance of lifelong learning. So two importances. One from purely biological well-being point of view. The second one is for your own career progression, your change progression. Be learning something that's going to get you to where you want to go. Goals also help you beat procrastination. So let's go back to this lifelong learning thing. Yes, we have Google. I love it. I do a lot of learning myself from Google once you know where to look. But the value in actually picking a course to learn something is you're in a classroom or online, but you're with a group of people. You can discuss the topics, you can agree with them or disagree with them, argue the points out. So you know that what you're getting isn't total BS from the lecturer, because the lecturer might know everything, but as a class, you'll all hone in on the ideas. Second of all, you've got assignments to do. You have deadlines. They're your measuring points along your way in the course you're doing to get to where you want to get. And there's a time limit on it. So when you get that piece of paper in your hand, your certificate, your diploma, your degree, whatever it is you need, and it doesn't have to be a formal piece of paper either. It can be from a private provider. Once you have something that you need to go for, you have deadlines and you'll achieve. That's a valuable step in getting to the next level and going for what you actually want. Now, we spoke earlier about the desirable goals. So they're called approach goals and avoidant goals. They're both important. There's several studies being done on rats in a lab. Now, to give them little challenges and little games to do and how to get food. So the reward at the end of the other side of the box, the Skinner box as I call it, B.F. Skinner invented the Skinner box, he'll get the food. There was one experiment where they tied a spring to the rat's tail so that they could measure the velocity and the speed at which he was going for the food. And it came in at X number of seconds to get there. From the other end of the box, they blew in a smell of a cat. The speed of him going towards the food increased dramatically. So he was already motivated to go for the food, but the fear of the cat drove him along. So when you're setting the goals, it is important that you have the approach goals, something that you really, really want. But there is an importance in being running away from something as well. Or I'll give you another example. So everybody here drives, yeah? And did you all learn in a manual transmission car? No? Aren't you lucky? So you don't know about the hill start. I see a few people laughing. You all know about the hill start? I still have nightmares about it. So you're trying to start the car. So your goal is to learn how to drive and get the car going without choking and killing the engine. So you're on the hill and you keep stalling, choking the engine, you're sweating, and the instructor is there beside you looking at. Now, I had an instructor that said, "Take off your watch." But I'll put it in modern day language. Give me your mobile phone. And he puts the mobile phone under the back wheel of the car and then tells you to do the hill start. What's your goal? Don't roll back. Don't roll back. So that's an avoidant goal. You're trying to do, you're trying not to do something, you don't want to squash your phone. But then you succeed, you move forward, and you say, okay, I did that. Let's try it again. You might stall again, but you know now that you've already driven forward. So you're going to try it again. So even if you do stall again, you know you're going to be able to do it. So the goal comes from being an avoidant goal to an approach goal again, to learning how to drive. You know you're making progress. Now, the other important thing about setting those goals for yourselves, there's a rule called the 85% rule of optimal learning. So if you create a goal that's too big for yourself, you're just going to say, it's not worth it. I'm never going to do it. And if you set a goal that's not big enough for yourself, you become complacent about it. So just the 85% rule is your pass rate. 15% is the potential for failure. We do learn from failure as well. But if we're failing too much, we'll get discouraged. If we're failing just enough, 15%, so it can be 10%, 20%, but 15% is kind of the optimal failure rate. So be realistic in those little goals that you're setting for yourself. Think of it as a ladder. So if you want to get to there, well, your goal should be there. Achieve that, then go there, and so on and so forth. So the longer term thing I was thinking about, as I said, is a personal vision and mission statement. It's a paragraph that encapsulates everything you would like to be, do, and have in your life and career. So your vision statement is something for you to tie your goals on to, and it's an end point that you want to reach at the end. And once you're approaching that, you know it's time to set a further out vision statement for yourself. Another important thing is set the little rewards for yourself along the way. Now, there is science behind not having a reward every time, because then you come to expect it and you're going for the reward rather than the achievement. As humans, we need challenges in our life. The same as, Zeus sent those challenges for us. We need those challenges, but we also have hope. And I'm going to leave you with this. Wind extinguishes a candle and energizes a fire. We're back to the fire theme. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind. That quote is from Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and he has one book called Anti-Fragile. Has anybody heard of that book? So again, it's the whole idea of challenges. We actually do need stress in our life. We don't need pervasive stress, but we need enough stress to keep us motivated. We need enough of failure in our lives to keep us, trying to achieve again and again. So thank you very much, folks.